Do we need like
And we're live.
live intro music? Like
We will eventually. We will eventually. But right now, why don't you tell the folks what they're watching?
Cool, man. Well, so this is week 2 of we're going with the counselor in the Cowboy, I think. By popular demand, voted on by me and Sam. But this is an effort that Sam and I, because we've done a bunch of stuff, a bunch of podcasts and a bunch of just collaborative efforts to really try to get good information to people, because we're living in a democracy, but democracy does not function unless people understand what the stakes are. And there is just so much interference, I think, in our system right now. There are bad faith actors, there is dark money, there are special interest groups. And so people just don't really know what's going on. And it's really hard to figure out what's going on. And so I'm a mental health counselor. I have my doctorate in mental health counseling. And I'm also just like a person. I have a nonprofit called Pay Love Forward in Billings, Montana. Nobody's paying me to do this. That's just me and Sam. Like we are involved in this because we deeply care about democracy. We're unbelievably concerned about the future our children or my children are going to grow up in, and we wanted to get involved. And I had a podcast before, and so have personally repurposed some of my just what I have to offer, and that's always that's always an inquest. Like, we are asking people, like, what do you have that you can bring to the table, because the stakes are so high right now, and your voice is needed, and you have superpowers, and so this is our attempt to to make a difference in this campaign and to support good people as we face November. And I mean, I for one am deeply concerned that if we don't make significant inroads in November, we won't have a democracy by the time we're done. And I think there are a lot of people that want that outcome. And so this is our effort to contribute what we can, and love hanging out with Sam. And so we're going to do this every Thursday night at 7, and just do the best we can to answer questions and really get people on the ground good information to make better decisions. Sam.
Well, and with that, tonight we are going to be talking about unity within the Democratic Party. If that is something that is an outdated concept, or if it is integral to our ability to move forward and protect our democracy, what people are doing to maintain that, and how we are going to respond to the division that we see within our own party. With us tonight, we have Jacob Miles and Hannah Nash, who are both county chairs that are actively helping to try to bring about the next wave of what I'm going to say is the Democratic Party of Montana, rebuild it to be more focused on the people. As my own experience as a candidate, these are two of the people that are leading the effort here in Montana to have a more responsive, people-forward, focused way of running the party. I greatly respect both of them, and I'm really excited to hear what they have to say about this really severe issue that we're seeing within the state. So with that, let's go ahead and get into the conversation. And I think the first question, of course, is party unity. Is this something that is important? Is this something that is an outdated concept? And what is it that you feel we need to do in order to strengthen that party unity here in Montana? Hannah, would you like to go ahead and get started?
Sure.
Hannah, before you go, can I just add a question too? Because I think for people who don't have some of the perspective that is not, like, what is going on in the Democratic Party right now? Because it's a clusterfuck, right? It's like it's a madhouse that we're all trying to work our way through. And so maybe even just kind of a description of what some of the controversy is, why we're having to ask that question in the first place.
Sure. And it's one of those situations where it says, like, the infamous old quote, "I'm not part of an organized political party, I'm a Democrat," which means, again, just like in starting off, that kind of gives you the vibe that in general, working with Democrats and organizing with Democrats is like herding cats. And I don't know if any of you are cat people, but as you know, that's an incredibly difficult task. And that is one thing, like, I would say is Montana's really struggling with right now, is there's some division between, if we were to think of like certain silos within the farm of the Montana Democratic Party. And some people have kind of found themselves retreating to their own silos and like, I'm going to have my own political party with blackjack and hookers. And that's not quite what we are.
We already have the Republican Party. Did that.
So like in looking at what the Montana Democratic Party is doing is it's really hard when you have, again, strong people who maybe were candidates that ran in this cycle, primary candidates that ran in this cycle, even maybe some of our general election cycle candidates who have kind of retreated to their silos. And instead of looking at the farm as a whole and seeing what candidates maybe the people have voted for, tens of thousands, if not more, Montanans have voted for, and they're kind of like, no, I'm in here with my blackjack and hookers in my silo. And that, again, is really hard, especially when you are in a state in which the Montana Democratic Party is a minority across the state. So I think we have some siloing happening. And I think a lot of us are hoping, if we can figure out how to bring some of these silos together and work together across these lines that are dividing us, we can probably win the Nobel Peace Prize, because it's a huge endeavor. But also, like, again, I think what the Democratic Party offers and why I have been loyal, let's say, for so long is the platform and the people that power the party, the voters on the ground, the blue collar, the working class, the people have been a part of grassroots Democratic politics for decades. Those are the people I admire. That's the platform that I admire. And that's why I'm a Democrat. So like my goal is, let's build on that. So I would say kind of that's the division I see. And I want us to get out of those silos. Jacob, I don't know your vibes on everything.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways that people describe the Democratic Party, and I think one of the things we strive for as Democrats, is to be the big tent party. And if you're going to have a big tent, you're going to have folks that don't always agree on things. And in fact, sometimes you're going to have folks who downright hate somebody in the party on a certain issue, maybe. But it's because of all of those other groups that we are able to be so progressive. We are able to make such positive change for the people of Montana, and how we end up, like, when you're a minority party in a state and you're flipping legislative seats, you're winning elections, that means you're doing it with badass people who are getting a ton of good things done for the folks that they represent and everyone else in the state, which is what we are all striving to do. We want to make sure that we've got good people in office that are going to do what's right for every Montanan at every single level that they can represent folks at.
Right.
For you, is that state or federal? Like what you're describing there?
I mean, it's both, right? I look, the news really likes to cover all the national stuff, as we're all aware. If we flip on MSNBC or CNN or Fox or whatever, 99.9% of the political coverage is going to be stuff happening in DC or federal races across the country. But as you get lower down that, kind of ballot, you're going to end up with folks getting elected to seats like state legislatures, like county commissions, school boards, city councils, where those folks, sometimes they're not going to run with a D next to their name because it's a nonpartisan race. But when you're getting Democrats into those seats, you're going to have success in a way that has direct impact on the everyday life of folks. Because what happens, more locally in government is far more impactful to your day-to-day life than, the shit that is coming out of Washington on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a really big point. I think that's something that often gets lost, and I really appreciate, especially when our federal level candidates really have that push to show things that are happening down ballot and draw people's attention to it. Because you're right, the things that are happening on the national stage, they're big, they're flashy, but more often than not, the thing that your city council person is going to vote on is going to have a more immediate and direct effect on your life than what is happening 3,000 miles away. It's the same as, what it's something that I was talking a lot about in our last week's episode, in which we were talking a lot about union things. And I know that both of you are union folks. And as a big supporter of unions myself, we have a union busting effort that's happening right here in Great Falls recently. And I put out the call for people to show up because, people can only show up for those No Kings protests to protest something that's happening 3,000 miles away, a person that fundamentally does not care about some people holding a sign on a bridge in Montana. But is anybody going to show up when we have something happening right down the street at a local grocer that it will have an impact on? So, yeah, I fully agree with you on
that. Sam, I think we should answer that question too, just as far as what is going on in the Democratic Party from our perspective, and where do both you and I stand? Do you want to start, or do you want me
to? Go ahead.
Well, so I just want to kind of preface this with my personal story, and because I am very, very new to politics, it's not been a passion and interest of mine really in any way, shape, or form. I watched Donald Trump get elected this last time around from a hospital room with my son. He was Down syndrome. He was diagnosed with leukemia, and he got his second. He got a bone marrow transplant. He's the first kid to get a bone marrow transplant at Denver Children's. There's like 40 of these kids ever, and he's with us right now, and it is because of the medical expertise. It is because of the funding for cancer research. It is because this has been a priority in our nation, and some incredible people saved my son's life. And so I was in the hospital when those cuts came, and I literally watched as kids were taken off of treatments, and the kind of life-saving stuff that was on the front line, and I just lived in that environment, and so it lit a fire in me, at some point it just passed the threshold of where I can no longer stand on the sidelines and not do anything. And so we were able to come back with my son, and truly he's my why. My kids are my why. But wound up, even then I wasn't necessarily all that interested in getting involved in politics, but my wife found Russ Cleveland's profile, and I had a podcast that it's leadership, it's nonprofit stuff in Billings. And she encouraged me to reach out to Russ. I was like, no, I don't want to do politics, but I did. And his story was so incredibly compelling, and they lost their daughter Madison, and so I got to talk with them about that experience, and that was their why for getting involved in this as well. And then that just kind of led me on a chain of events where I wound up connecting with Alani and Brian, and have spent a lot of time. I talked to Alani earlier today. I talk to Brian regularly. Sam, I don't know quite as well, but I've talked to him a fair number of times as well. And so, my knowledge base is fairly limited, but I'm watching this unfold, and I want to throw this into the deep end, because what I see here is totally unacceptable, which is that the Democratic Party from inside is supporting an independent candidate that, while actively undermining the candidacy of the person that we elected. And to me, this is what this looks like. And I welcome pushback, and I want to have this conversation, but it looks like the Democratic Party had intended to vacate this spot as much as humanly possible, and then run Bodner as an independent. And that this was something that Tester put together. I think they tried it 4 years ago when Penny Ronning tried to run. And what it looks like to me is that we are actively undermining our own candidate to support an independent who is not particularly electable for a variety of different reasons. One is that this cloak and dagger shit is horrible. It looks horrible. Like, people are so tired of getting lied to, and we don't like. There's a reason that Donald Trump has a 30% approval rating, and we still can't win people over. And it's because we suck. And we have to figure out how to get better. And one of the ways to do that is to stop lying to people. I'm entirely okay with an independent candidate running for office, but form an independent coalition, wrap around that person. Don't do it from inside of the Democratic Party. And this is my perspective. I talk to Brian and Alani on a regular basis, and I kind of have a front row seat to some of this stuff, and I welcome any pushback. Maybe that's not what's happening. Maybe I'm totally incorrect, but this is unacceptable as far as I'm concerned. And we probably need to clean house. We probably need to get our act together so that we can be something that people will turn to as we're getting gutted from the federal level. Donald Trump just made $2 billion selling a meme coin, right? like this is the kind of, like, if you're on the Republican side at a congressional level, they all just said that was okay. Like, as he printed his face on a piece of data and sold access to the White House and jacked the price up to $70 and then left all of his supporters with something that is worth nothing now. Like he has mastered robbing the future to enrich himself. And every Republican from Downing to Daines across the board, they just said this is okay. And they've said this is okay when he started a war with Iran. They said this is okay when we took out a Venezuelan president. They just said this is okay. They just continue to lack any kind of spine whatsoever. And this is Sheehy, Downing, Gianforte, every single one of these Republicans has just failed to do their due diligence and be like a decent human being and like have some kind of a spine. And so this is what we're up against. And we're over here just shooting ourselves in the foot. And that's what it looks like to me. And so, I mean, I think that there is, like, we have enough runway to do better. And I think we can. So,
well, and I mean, I bring the perspective of previously, just recently having been a candidate at the federal level. And, the thing that I would say is that I think that we do have a lot of division in the party. And just before we actually went live, I wish we would have had it recorded. I feel like it was a perfect little conversation bit that we had talking about, where that division, kind of comes in, and the fact that we are the Big Tent party. We are the party that welcomes this variety of ideas. But at what point does the overt presence of that individualism become a detriment? At what point is everybody in the boat rowing in a different direction and not getting anywhere? And I don't think that we should necessarily go the other way. That is how you get someone like Donald Trump elected, where you have this mindless obedience to party over the morals that we're supposed to be actually electing into office. But I think that there is a point where, at this point, at least to me, the division that I saw the most and that was pushing back on me the most during my campaign was the division between the old guard Democrats where, don't get me wrong, I fully value, I respect, I admire all the things that they have done. But like I said a lot in my campaign, if what had been done in the past was still working, I wouldn't have to be here, versus the more progressive side of the candidates and those that are actively pushing to try to make a new change and sit there and say, hey, the systems that we've had forever are not working and we need to do something different. And I think that right there is the main division that we really need to do something about, because it is causing not only a schism between members of the party, but it's also, and where personally I don't actually believe quite as much of the conspiracy from within the party to elect Bodner. I do believe, and I fully believe, that there are members of the more traditional side of the Democratic Party that are involved to a certain degree. A good example is I work for, I won't name them by name, but I work for a couple of guys here in Great Falls that have been politically active since the 1960s. One of them was a previous mayor of Great Falls. These are guys that go hunting and fishing with Tester. I mean, they are old guard Democrat. They have supported Democrats for decades, and they are 100% behind Bodner this year, even with the fact that one of them admitted to me openly that he knows that Bodner's not a great guy, but that it doesn't matter because Tester told him to. And that is a real problem, because that, in my opinion, it's not even so much that we have this horrible thing between the traditionalist Dems and the progressive Dems. The thing that I think is worrying is that certain members within the traditionalist Dems have developed that same I must obey mentality that we criticize so heavily out of the conservative right. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Thanks for letting us rant for a
No,
while.
that's okay. That's all right. First thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to start with you, Mr. Al. I'm going to unequivocally say 100% right here that not a single elected member of the executive board was involved in the Seth Bodner independent whatever. We didn't recruit him. We didn't ask for him. We in no way have made there is no decisions to funnel him money. There's no decisions to give him support. There is nothing that we are doing that supports that man. And that honestly has to do with our rules and our bylaws. Let's say we even wanted to, we're not allowed to. And that's both defined by our bylaws as well as Montana law currently. MCA actually defines many of the things that political parties are allowed to do. So I want to say that. Now, here's the deal. There are former party elected officials, former party electeds that are supporting him.
Like Mafi Funk? Is that
Yes. Yeah. John Tester, Mafi Funk, Max Baucus. All of these people, not a single one of them is currently in control of the party infrastructure. Not a one. So I want to kind of make it clear that when we talk about what is driving financial decisions of the party, what is driving messaging of the party and that sort of stuff, all of those human beings, nobody is supporting Bodnar from a financial, ideological, voting perspective or anything like that. We support the candidate that 48,000 Montanans chose in the primary election. And that is our mission statement, and that is the goal.
Yeah.
There's a group over here of people who have retired from politics, who are not in any elected formal structure positions or infrastructure positions, and they have made some very specific decisions. And those specific decisions, I believe, are what you are taking strong umbrage to. And the problem is, and this is an educational piece, all of that looks the same, doesn't it? It really does. And it's easy to say Montana Democratic Party is screwing us and they're supporting Bodnar. And it's really hard to differentiate that we don't. And again, when we talk about voters in general, the four people in this room are not your average voter at all. We are the exception to the rule. And so again, if we're trying to communicate these incredibly complicated concepts to the average voter, here's the deal. We're obviously losing, and we are obviously not communicating those well. And people think that the party is trying to screw them. I'm sorry, but it is non-electeds who are trying to screw you. And I can guarantee to you that we are doing everything we can from an infrastructure party perspective to stop that from happening. And it is a painful uphill battle because John Tester was incredibly popular.
Well, that's the thing. When a Tester or a Baucus says a thing, that's the Democratic Party saying that thing, even when it's not.
Right. And so that's the uphill battle, and that's what we're fighting. And so to me, again, we have the silos, okay? One of us is the blackjack and hookers silo. I'm not going to say which one. And we are wanting, again, to bring together, how do we bring those diametrically opposed sides together? And where we currently have, again, a candidate who 48,000 Montanans voted for as their democratically elected choice, and that we are trying to bolster and put forward. And they now have brought in a third candidate to challenge her. So now Alani is currently having to fight a two-way race. How do we do that? And I think that is what is sowing a lot of this division. And I can also get why we're trying not to lean into it either, because again, it puts off this vibe of Democrats in disarray and that we aren't doing enough when we're desperately trying to do everything we can to get those Democrat candidates across the board. Top of the ticket all the way down, bottom all the way up. That's the goal. And
so what is Shannon O'Brien included in that list of people that are?
Yes, I'm ready whenever Brian's ready. 110%.
Shannon O'Brien is who I was referring to. Right?
No, Shannon is the elected chair of the Montana Democratic Party. Yes, she is elected chair of the board.
The word on the street is that she speaks to John Tester on a very regular basis and is involved in this. I mean, it's difficult not to feel like there is an insider's track.
Right.
When this stuff is happening, like I had no idea where it's coming from necessarily, but Mafi Funk, was part of the Democratic Party. Like this is as underhanded as anything that I've seen. And like if we don't clean house and get ourselves aligned, because my understanding is that the party is not been able to publish a statement on Seth Bodnar and say that, and we unequivocally support Alani.
We already did that.
Yeah, I thought they already had.
Sorry, apologies. We did that as a party. Full statement right from Shannon O'Brien's mouth. It was published. It was sent to all the news press. Sam, do you remember that?
Yeah, I read it. I read it.
Okay, so that's already been done. And I would say also that, like, again, Shannon, when Shannon talks to people, she talks to Democrats all around the state. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have a purity test for them. And I don't know about you and what you have an expectation of when it comes to a political party chair. I do expect our political party chair and our executive director to communicate with Democrats all across the board. Well, communication does not equal submission. It does not equal that, he's going to tell her what to do, that he's dictating down to her. That is not how the system works at all. So yes, absolutely. She does talk to these people. She talks to Democrats all across the state of Montana, as does Emily, our executive director, as does our vice chair, Bruce Knudsen. That's literally what we elected them to do.
Right. I mean, if I may interject, a good example is Shannon talks to me on a fairly frequent basis. And Shannon and I mean, it's been a very open thing that we do not like each other, even a teeny tiny bit, pretty much since we met. But she still calls me on a fairly regular basis because that's her job. And I'm aware that if it wasn't her job, she'd probably tell me to go jump in a lake. And that's okay.
Well, I think, like, continuing on with that too, like, before the primary, Shannon talked to Seth Bodnar on a regular basis because she was calling him a couple of times a week trying to convince him to run as a Democrat and to enter the Democratic primary, so that way we wouldn't have this weird split of multiple candidates, technically 4 because there's a libertarian, and then whoever makes it out of that primary, like, that's we all get behind them because that's what we're supposed to do. And that is what those of us who are still in these elected leadership positions within the Democratic Party here in Montana. Like, I have been elected as the chair of the Lewis and Clark County Democrats. I was elected to the Montana Democratic Party by fellow Democrats from all over the state. My job in both of those positions is to get Democrats elected to office, and that is federal office, state office, legislative office, local office, doesn't matter. My job is to find Democrats, get them to run, get them elected. And I know some people are trying to tell us that Seth is a Democrat, but he's never run as a Democrat before. I've never seen him at Democrat events before he started running. I can't tell you he's a Democrat, so I am not going to lift a finger to help him get elected because that is not my job. My job for the U.S. Senate race is to get Alani Bankhead elected so that way she can go to Washington and she can go arrest some more pedophiles like she's done her entire career.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. So, if I may, to get us back on track for the topic of this particular conversation, we've talked a little bit about what we've seen as issues within the party and why unity within the party is so incredibly important. So the next thing that I would like to kind of talk about is, we've clearly gotten to this point where there is an incredible amount of division. And regardless if that's division between the traditional and the progressive, or between those who are supporting an outside candidate and those who are not, or anything else, what is it, as people that have been working in this and have dedicated such a major portion of your lives to helping Democrats get elected, what is it that we can do as in your position or in our position or in the positions of those who may watch this video to help restore that unity and make it so that we can continue to be the party of the big tent and continue to be the party that has the many different opinions, but get everybody rowing in the same direction on the major concepts?
Yeah, I'll jump in here first, and Hannah, you can correct all of the mistakes I make. I think one of the most important things that all of us can do, as whether we're Democrats, whether we're just civically engaged members of our communities, like whatever it is, if you care about your community, one, you have to be involved. And, that's going to grow our tent more, which is going to give us more people with differing opinions, which may mean that we're going to have more folks that disagree with each other on things. I would not want to be a part of a Democratic Party that 100% agreed on everything all the time, because I don't need that kind of groupthink in my life. But I want more people to be involved so we can have more voices at the table, so we know that our ideas are going to be the best ideas for as many people as possible. But the other part of it too is we need to communicate with each other better. I mean, I don't think I could count how many different conspiracy theories I've heard about different candidates or the party or this person or that person or so on and so forth, just this election cycle, much less any of the others. But these conspiracy theories, they gain traction because somebody heard it and then they say it to somebody else and then they say it to somebody else. But if any of those people along that line of telephone were to reach out to the people that were like at the center of that conspiracy theory or, that idea or that thing they don't agree with, we could get some more clarification and we could nip all of those in the bud. So if we can communicate with each other, with other Democrats, with the folks that we agree with the folks that we don't agree with, if we can do that and we can start asking more questions of, hey, I heard this, what do you know about it? Or, hey, this person, can you ask them what was going on and get back to me? Like those kinds of things are going to allow us to cut a lot of this stuff out at the knees, because there have been plenty of rumors about the executive board, and every single one of those that has spread out at different points in time this election cycle, not a single person has called me. I don't know that anybody has called Hannah to be like, hey, I heard that the executive board did this. What actually happened? I mean, we've got all sorts of problems like that, where if we can do the hard thing of, hearing something juicy, getting that piece of tea, or hearing something that like feeds on an emotion, makes us angry, fills us with fear. Like those emotions are incredibly powerful motivators, as I'm sure quite a bit as a counselor. So if we can fight the urge to just jump onto something because it's juicy, or jump onto something because of how much emotion it brings out in us, and we can go to the source, we can talk to the folks that we're hearing things about, talk to the folks that we don't agree with, we're going to stop the conspiracy theories from starting, we're going to stop them from spreading, and it will allow us to get back to our main focus, which is getting Democrats elected so we can fix the affordability crisis that we're having in Montana, so we can prevent data centers from ruining our public lands and our water and our air, and we can move on a focus of protecting Medicaid, protecting Social Security, all of the things that Democrats are going to be showing up to the legislature in 6 months to start doing.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of follow up on that too, because even what I expressed earlier, like that is, if it's a conspiracy theory, it's something with legs that Shannon is in cahoots with Tester and part of this very underhanded kind of plot to undermine a Democratic candidate for this independent, and so like. And it's also very refreshing to hear you guys say pretty unilaterally, like, no, we're on Team Bankhead, and that is the position of all of the board members.
You're muted, Hannah.
I am sorry. Well, I was going to say that's the position of the board and everything like that. I can't speak for what somebody feels inside their head and in their heart, and if they're going to go into a voting booth and do something else. But the board is, again, unified in our mission. And again, remember, everything that comes out is a product of that group. And just like Jake and I, we can't speak independently of, decisions and stuff. So the thing is, again, if people tell you the executive board did this, unless you saw that it came out from the board, no, we didn't. Because again, everything that comes out as a unified voice. And comes out through our spokesperson of Shannon or through the party spokesperson. And that's the way the board has worked for decades.
So I was just going to add, like, We have a 24-person board here in Montana for the Democratic Party. We've got, executive officers. We've got representatives who are county chairs or vice chairs. We've got, at-large folks, and we've got Democratic state legislators. We've got a large board. So even if there was 1 or 2 or 3 people that personally, in their heart of hearts, like wanted to do something different, it's not enough people to like get the board to actually make those decisions. There's not enough people that would prevent us from finding a replacement candidate for any race if a candidate dropped out, or like we saw a couple of years ago, because we mentioned 2022 earlier, when State Senator Mark Sweeney was running for Congress and passed away during the primary. Like if that had been post-primary, we were still going to get a Democrat on the ballot, because as Hannah mentioned, that's what our state party bylaws mandate of us, and that is what Montana Code Annotated demands of us. And I'm tired of dealing and looking at Austin Knutson's face, so I don't want to end up in a lawsuit with him.
Hey, everybody, real quick. We actually have a surprise guest joining us, Alani. If you can hear us, we can all see you now. And Alani is jumping on with us as a surprise guest for this chat.
Oh my gosh. I hopped on the live and I was like, these are all amazing humans. So thank you for letting me come on.
Plan, Sam? Did you plan this?
I did not. I've been following
like an hour earlier today.
I am keeping track of your chat in your Facebook better than you are, because she's been in your chat putting in some awesome messages this whole time. And so I saw her there. I was like, hey, Alani, would you like to come and hang out with us for a little bit?
I love that.
Yeah. No, seriously, you guys, this conversation has been giving me life. So thank you all. Because I think first of all, like everybody here deeply cares about the community and about the state. And like, the points of like the conspiracy theories and the rumors and all the insane, right? Like, I think when we talk about the solutions that we're seeking as a community, it starts here. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just very thankful for you guys and your leadership just as a whole. And for the watcher or listener who does not know these individuals, they inspire me all the time. So I'm just really thankful for your guys' leadership, and thanks for letting me hang on for a minute, but I can't stay too long. I just wanted to.
Hey, no, we appreciate it, Alani, and thank you so much for everything that you are doing to help push the democratic values here in Montana, especially with how much, just like we've been talking about today, how much just murky, terrible things have been going on with the Senate race. As a previous candidate myself, I know it's incredibly hard, and I just want you to know that I've been talking a lot with Emily about what I can do to try to help your campaign up here in Great Falls and elsewhere. So I really look forward to being able to try to offer those things to you as well.
No, thank you so much. That's really gracious of you guys to say. And yeah, everything, we've got e-board members and central committee leaders here. And I have to say, like, one of the hard parts of campaigning statewide is the team were like, how do we communicate all the information in our brains that we're seeing, just like you guys are, right? Despite all the craziness, whether it's online or whatever, there's so much fresh energy and excitement. The convention I thought was really amazing. I still have to do a post about it because even though, there's these perceptions of like the party's imploding and all this stuff, I'm like, yo, like there might be some ashes and some building brick by brick, but it's a rebuild. And the folks that we get to engage with are just patriots who care and want to offer their little bit. And so, I love talking to Hannah and Jacob, and they've been around for so long, and obviously Sam on the campaign trail. But the history and the experience that you guys have, you've seen these themes come up, you've seen the BS. And I think one of the things that we're seeing is I think people are ready to rise above the BS and the nonsense. But I'm curious from your guys' perspective, like, what are you seeing and hearing?
I will just jump in because one of the things I was going to mention to glom off of Jake's excellent comments on community, something that I'm really noticing again through, if you kind of ignore the muck and the noise and everything up here, I'm seeing some grassroots activism from people taking an interest in politics that have never taken an interest before. And again, I don't give a rat's ass about the $500 donor up here. I'm more interested in the grocery store clerk who can afford $5 to give to their local candidate, because that means that's $5 that they are choosing to invest in their local candidate to help their local community. And you can guarantee that that grocery clerk is trying to educate every person in their circle about why that candidate is important. And I'm seeing that energy for you, Alani, and it's been building ever since the primary. I see a lot of people talking online about, I wasn't excited, I'm getting excited now. And I would suspect that we're going to start to see some grassroots funding for not just your campaign, Alani, but for the Montana Democratic Party as well. People who are like, I can give $10 to help elevate candidates that passed this great platform that has so many of our ideas baked into it, finally. And I see this energy building up from the ground. And again, I'd rather have 100 $5 donors than a single $500 donor who's trying to play both sides. So again, I just want to say, I really think that's some energy that you're bringing forward. So whatever it is you are doing, keep that shit up.
Can we, like we mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, like we're in the middle of an affordability crisis. Everything is so goddamn expensive right now. So the grocery store clerk, the school janitor, the teacher, the union worker out trying to keep their job up in Great Falls, all of these folks, when they give us, or myself as a candidate, or Alani as a candidate, or their central committee, or the state party $5, that means so much more to them individually than that person who can just willy-nilly write a $14,000 max donation to a Senate candidate, or a $470 max donation to a legislative or a county candidate. Like, don't get me wrong, we are still in a world where we need money for campaigns, but I want to know that people care, and getting a $5 donation from someone who is pinching pennies at home just as much as I am means so much more to me as a candidate, and I think it does to a lot of other folks too.
Well, 100%. No, it's something that I saw a lot when I was on the campaign trail, and a lot of the people that were previously big supporters of mine, I've been really pushing them to come and look at your campaign, Alani, because of this very same reason, because you do represent a lot of those, ideals that are going to inspire these people that feel criminally underrepresented by, what we've always had within our political sphere. And I mean, the number of people that I met that were engaging with politics for the first time in their lives over this last election cycle has blown my mind. And on top of that, I mean, shoot, I even, to carry on with it, a lot of my campaign was actually pushed forward by people giving in-kind donations of picking up I put out a list of like the kind of paper that I use for my cards I was handing out and everything. People were donating it because, hey, they can't afford a whole lot, but they might be able to add it on when they're already, getting something else, and they did it as in-kind donations. And just that alone, I mean, these are people that can't afford a lot, but they're willing to invest what they can in actually trying to make a real change. And they're doing that because they see that there's a candidate that's actually going to represent that. That's something that, Alani, I think that your campaign has really brought forward, and the energy is, like, to carry on what Hannah was saying, really, really coming up with that. And there's people that are starting to pay attention because, hey, this is somebody that has managed to not only continue to represent the interest of working class people in here in Montana, but has also managed to do it in a way that hasn't made things feel depressing as hell, which tell me how many times that has happened with our various candidates that we've had.
No, thank you for the really generous words. But can I also just say, Matt is one of those people who's gotten involved recently because he's like, I can't sit here and watch this anymore. And he's not running for office, but he's using a platform to share stories and communicate and connect people, right? But I think, to your point, Sam, it takes a whole flipping village to do any kind of campaign. And I think one of the things I'm most excited about, like I truly wish that people could get to know all the individuals that are on this panel, because like we've been talking a lot about how do we build the next generation of leadership for the party, for the state, and that's part of the groundswell that's coming up, right? I know, Sam, like running as a farrier and a working class guy, that is so important because representation does matter, right? And it's the same thing with, I was just on another podcast earlier, and we were talking about, when you fail, is it really failure, right? Because even though we had Jeanette Rankin, but we had a whole bunch of other really qualified, amazing women running for statewide office who didn't make it. But I honestly am so thankful. Like I get to stand on their shoulders because of all the things that they did to pave the way, right? And everybody plays their part, and there's just a much bigger picture to it, right? But I think one of the things I'm most excited about with the e-board, the way it's currently set up, and the leaders that we have in the party is that I think there's a future for the party in terms of leading the state into more of those spaces of collaboration and community and inclusion, and really giving people a voice. And that's one of the things I want the listener to really walk away with, is follow these individuals, like engage with them, ask them questions, ask to be connected, to folks in your area or whatever it might be. The number of folks I see messages about now, or that message me and they're like, I'm thinking about running for office. I'm like, where are you? Let me connect you to the central committee, because, and at the same time, we don't want to do a rush campaign. Let's take years to build trust. Let's do things where we're putting you in front of the community. Let's talk about developing you as a public speaker, right? And so I've been in a lot of leadership scenarios, but really like the humility that I see in this room and in the leadership in the party is just really encouraging to me. You're always going to have the power hungry people, and I think it's very obvious, right, who those individuals are. But I think, and they're always going to be there. I think that's just a reality of politics and power. But I think the point is, the more these conversations can happen, it encourages that humble leadership, right? And for you to just decide what part you can offer, and know that that's enough, because when we all offer, then that's how we win, right? But I'm gonna hop off, but I just want to say thank you one more time. Like, thanks for letting me hang out with you guys for a second. But also, yeah.
Well, because so I have one question, and maybe you can just kind of give your brief thoughts on the question, which is to just kind of return to our topic. One is, how do we get good information out there, like as a party? Like, I mean, this is like a revelation of a conversation I really deeply appreciate. And you and Jacob coming on here, and like, because I truly didn't know the answers to the questions I was asking, and I really try to pay attention. And so how do we get good information out there so that we can be aligned as a party? And then also just like, how do we pull ourselves together? Because we have phenomenal candidates. If anybody who knows me, man, I sing Alani's praise. She's just one of my favorite people, a dear friend. I think so incredibly highly of the work that you've done. I think we need. You just watched what happened with Graham Plattner, and he had to I saw this Facebook post like all over, like, you maybe a way to get past the struggle with leaders who have been sexual offenders is maybe we should just elect some more women. And like, I just want to like champion the hell out of that. And we have a phenomenal one. And so like, how do we just wrap around these incredible candidates that we have, starting with Alani, as far as I'm concerned.
And Alani, and not that I want to take up any extra of your time, but just to wrap on to Matt's question there a little bit, something that we've already talked about, I'm not sure if you were listening by this point in our conversation earlier, but was talking about the fact that the people, the elected officials and those who are retired from being part of the party, both tend to have a bigger voice sometimes than the people that are actively part of, let's say, our county chairs. You as a candidate, you as our next senator, you as whatever you do after that, are by definition going to have a bigger voice than a lot of the people actively working within the party. So how would you use that voice to, instead of doing what so many others before you have done and use it to divide internally within the party, how could you use your voice to bring those disparate parts of the party back together?
Yeah, so I think, and this goes back to like all the 50 counties that we went to during the primary. This is all learned information, right? But number one is just developing a culture where people feel comfortable asking, because the number of people who reach out, or they'll DM or email or whatever, and they're like, what's Alani's position on this? Or how does she feel about this? And if somebody puts a phone number, I'll call, and they're shocked 9 times out of 10. They're like, is this really Alani? I'm like, yes. And they're like, I'm shocked. I've never gotten a call. And I'm like, well, I think that your candidate should be accessible, right? But I think in terms of building that trust, it is showing up in those places. And the other thing we hear is people will tell us, we haven't seen a candidate here in, I don't even know how long. And I think that's what we're trying to communicate to a lot of folks that maybe are new and nervous about running as well. I'm like, literally showing up is like most of the battle. You just being there builds so much credibility with folks. And you know, I have a background in child sex crimes, and trafficking is one of the things, right? So we learn that it's on average, right, the sales like 101. It takes 7 contacts on average with people before they have enough trust with you to buy something from you. And when I would work trafficking cases, we would have people that are, you know, the whole like, I want to rescue people and I want to help the kids. The first time they do a case and they interact with a victim, they get cussed out, they get violent, and people are shocked by this. And I'm like, because they've been groomed not to trust anybody, least of all you. So, and it's the same thing with politics. They don't trust people in politics, and understandably, right? So in the trafficking space, the first contact I have is I'm bringing them water, right? Because you can see them on the track or whatever. Bring them water. Hi, my name's Alani. I'm a law enforcement officer. How are you? Are you okay? Do you need anything? No? Okay, great. Next, a week later, I come by. Maybe I bring food. Hey, how are you doing? Just checking in on you. I don't ask them for anything. Third time. Hey, checking in. What can I get for you? Here's a restaurant business card with my phone number on it if you ever need anything. Hey, and you continue this until they are ready to come to you. And that's how, and I think this, I mean, I wish I'm on a truncated timeline, right? Because we got November's right around the corner. But I think for the party, in terms of what everybody here is building, this is a multi-year process. But if we keep showing up and being transparent and showing that we are accessible, that ultimately is what we have seen builds coalition and relationship and trust with the party. And you know, it sucks because I'm like, I just want everybody to like get on the bandwagon with the family and stuff, because it's a great family to be a part of. But it takes time, and it takes all of us. And there, you know, when I was younger, I didn't know that. It's like, you think there's some magical formula to building trust. It's not. It's saying what you're going to do and then backing it up with behavior until people believe you. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Well, Lonnie, hey, thank you so much for joining us. And we are going to be doing candidate profiles as part of our thing moving forward. We would love to have you be the very first one. We're doing them every Thursday. Hit me up.
Of course. No, thank you, Patriots. Super, super appreciative of all of you guys, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. All right.
Matt, to your question real quick about like how do we communicate better, all that.
For this,
it's an incredibly difficult thing to do for the specific reason to what Hannah mentioned earlier. Like, the 4 of us are not your average voter. Like, I basically have a full-time job with how much attention I pay to politics in Montana on a daily basis. It's a full-time job I don't get paid for, but it's one that I put that much time and energy into it, and the average person can't do that. And that's a fundamental flaw with how our system works right now that I don't have the answer on how to fix that at the moment. But it reminds me, when I first started working in politics, I did it in Iowa, and it was 2018. Rob Sand was running for office in Iowa. He got elected as the only Democrat to get elected statewide in 2018 that year as state auditor. He's just finished up his 2 terms, and now he's running for governor of Iowa. an absolutely fantastic person. I strongly recommend any Democrat go look up Rob Sand and support the Iowa Democrats for sure after you give money to the Montana Democrats. But Rob Sand said in a video just the other day that, you know, we've all heard the phrase low information voter, right? He says that we should reframe that to non-masochistic voter, because when was the last time you watched an hour of MSNBC or CNN and you felt better about life after watching an hour of the news? So that is the biggest barrier that we have to try to break through, of how can we communicate with people in a way that is going, you know, to Alani's point, like, we've got to build trust with them. We've got to, you know, say we're going to do things and then do them. We've got to show people all of the good that we're doing, but we have to actually get it in front of people in a way that they're going to absorb it, instead of, you know, just feeling crappy afterwards because, you know, we spent 50 minutes of an hour-long segment on something and all we talked about was negative stuff. Right. Don't get me wrong, negative stuff can be important, but we have to start talking about the good that Democrats are doing more than, you know, just constantly going after the shitholes of people that we're running against, like Bodners or Almies.
And I would also like add on to that, like how the sausage is made in politics, like this infrastructure conversation we've been having, and the rules that govern the e-board, and why even if Shannon was a clandestine operative, why she still couldn't do what she's doing because of those rules. All of that stuff is incredibly boring. No one cares about it. It is like, for, again, the average voter, the average Montanan, it's not cool and it's not sexy, and it's only things that people who vote in the rules convention every other year care about in the Montana Democratic Party. And so, like, for example, all the questions that you asked, Matt, about like how does this work and could they be supporting these people, all of that is answered by the basic structure that's spelled out in our bylaws on our website. I didn't provide any extra deep information. What is there and how we communicate, and the rules that govern Shannon as the chair, and the rules that govern us as an e-board, all of that is public knowledge. And it's one of those things where, again, that stuff's not interesting and it's not cool. And there's a lot of stuff floating around about the Montana Democratic Party and how we support candidates and how we operate, that, again, people aren't interested in gathering because it's no fun.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, speaking of somebody that, again, was just recently a candidate, before I started taking an active look in politics and started, like, actually sitting there and saying, like, okay, I need to figure out how I'm going to get in this and how I'm going to help because, you know, the house is on fire. You know, I can legitimately say that I had no fucking clue what the structure of a political party was. Even as somebody that was a pretty engaged voter, I still just did not know, did not care, did not have the time to find out. And that is the position that the majority is in. So we have to find a different way to deliver that information, because to the average person, the Democratic Party in its entirety is probably John Tester, Mike Bacchus, and Kev Ham, because he's really loud and he's in our comments right now.
Well, so look, so, you know, I am somebody, like, because I am somebody who's attempting to educate myself. Like that is what I've done, and I've gotten to connect with these phenomenal people like Alani and Sam, and really it's been so fun. But like I don't know the inner workings necessarily, and so there has to be a concerted effort, because I think truly what we're experiencing right now with Seth Bodner is it's an existential threat to our party. And the reason I say that is because it amplifies the doubt that we're all experiencing, which is, I don't trust you guys. And back to this point that 30% of people approve of Donald Trump, but we still can't win him over. Like, that's crazy. And it's because there's so much subterfuge. And this to me is, it's like a case in point example of that cloak and dagger stuff that just causes all of us to feel like sick in our stomachs. And so, like, to me, if I was Shannon O'Brien, I'd be making Facebook clips supporting Alani, and I'd boost the shit out of it, because that's how most voters actually get their information. And I can potentially, like, I can try and go through the bylaws and figure out what it is that's actually, you know, being mixed into the sauce. But again, like, we are in mass low information voters. And so, like, we got to get really, really creative, and we got to get really, really unified, because we have phenomenal candidates.
Well, it's the thing, though. Quite frankly, having it come from Shannon doesn't really do a whole lot. And I will only say that because, again, speaking as somebody that was a low information voter and whose family is very intentionally low information voters, that's when my family just tells me to tell them, you know, what to do when it comes to politics, and they don't want to know about it. You should hear the number of times that most of you have met Maz, that she just straight out will yell at me if I send her too many political things because it screws up her feed, and she hates it. But, like, quite frankly, for the average person, no one knows who the hell Shannon O'Brien is. Most people don't even understand that there is a chair of the Montana Democratic Party. That's what we have to overcome there. And I think that right there should be a whole conversation.
To push back a little, Sam, though, the optics of this are awful. John Tester was one of the gold sponsors at the Democratic Party. Like, his name was flashed while he is actively undermining our party. Like, and so I'm waiting for somebody to tell me that John Tester is not actively undermining our party, because that's exactly what I think he is doing. And John, and look, Bodner, man, like, the guy, he's not electable at this point in time. Like, this is the age of Epstein, and this guy has scandal after scandal in how he treats women. And like that is a non-starter for so many voters. And so, like, pull him out. Like, let's find a path where he could be electable at some point in time, but he isn't right now.
Well, and I'd love to, and I know that we're getting on our time where we'll need to wrap this up soon, but a question I'd love to field to our two people here is, because I think that they would know a lot more about this than I would, but in the case of, let's say, Tester, being a gold sponsor at the dinner, obviously the optics of that aren't great for anybody that's paying attention to the Democratic Convention, which, again, I don't think includes most of these non-educated voters, but for those who are paying attention and see as bad, I'm not sure there's anything in the current bylaws of the party that would even allow for them to have stopped him from doing that, because you just go on Act Blue, you click the button, and there you go. I think that could be something that could be brought up at the Rules Convention next year, but I don't think that there's anything this year that even could have been done, even if anybody wanted to.
But Sam, fuck the rules. Like, how about some leadership? Like, you just stand up.
There's laws, though, that have to be related as well.
Yeah, but you, like, stand up there and say, like, I mean, if that is what he is actively doing, and he wants to be a gold member sponsor, then let's say what he's doing to our party at the Democratic Convention, and that's a leadership question.
Would either of our guests like to respond?
I mean, on one hand, I'm gonna say this is Hannah talking here.
Of course.
Okay. All right. So I'm just throwing this out here. On one hand, it is imperative that, like, even me as a central committee chair, I have to keep the lights on. I have to. And again, if someone else can help me work and find a way to be able to look at certain sources of funding and be like, no, I don't need your help to help me keep the lights on, to help me connect with voters, to help me buy ad spots as a candidate. Absolutely. I'm going to say, if you guys can find that, I would love to be able to have that leadership and that funding to be able to say no. The union thug in me says, guess what, folks? We eat management's pizza and we fucking unionize anyway. I will take your money. I'm sorry. Like, I will take your money, John Tester. I will take your money, Max Baucus. I will take your money, and I'm going to use it to elect Democrats. And I don't care what you think about that.
Yeah,
because that is my goal, is we will use that. And so, again, Hannah's philosophy on
Hannah.
Hannah's the best.
So, on one hand, I'm a huge supporter of the Montana plan. I'm really excited about the concept of, I would prefer no private funding in elections. I would prefer publicly funded elections where it did not matter if you were a fast food worker or a billionaire, you are now on the exact same playing field. That's the future I want for my children and for electoral politics. But friends, we're not there yet.
Yep.
And we still have a compelling need to get good human beings elected. And again, as a Democrat, I do owe it as an elected member of something in my community to do everything I possibly can to get good human beings elected. And so I admit I'm going to take your pizza and I'm going to fucking work against you anyway. So
yeah,
that's what I'll say.
I mean, that's part of politics, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that it's in an episode of The West Wing where it's like, what are you doing in politics if you can't take someone's money and then stab them in the back afterwards? Like, and I am very thankful to, Brian Schweitzer, Steve Bullock, John Tester, Max Baucus, like these Democrats, Nancy Keenan, all of these folks that were Democrats holding statewide or federal office in Montana, which allowed me to grow up in a Montana that had Democratic leadership helping shape it into the state that we all love. And the reason why so many people want to continue to live here. I think a large part of that is because we had fantastic leadership at a lot of different levels. Now, I do not agree with what former Senator Tester is doing right now. I do not think we should have an independent in this race. If somebody was an independent that wanted to be in this race, they should be doing it themselves, like the Dr. Mike Eisenhower, who's running in the Eastern Congressional District. I know there's an independent running in the Western Congressional District, but like none of the stuff that we're seeing with Bodner, none of that is even close to touching either of those two folks, because those two folks just showed up on their own wanting to do this. So I don't agree with what Senator Tester is doing. I don't agree that, Max Baucus is supporting it as well. I was very happy to see Brian Schweitzer go on a podcast the other day, and he's calling it all out, saying that it's bad. And I mean, we're going to have lots of voices that think that it's a good thing. We have got lots of voices in the Democratic Party that thinks it's a bad thing. We've got a lot of voices of folks in the middle who just aren't really sure, which is what's going to happen with just about everything that we talk about or every issue that we face. So we were talking about, fear and how powerful of an emotion that is and how the powerful emotions will drive our decisions. I think a lot of Democrats in Montana are afraid. Donald Trump is fucking president again. We have Governor Gianforte, whose DPHHS just moved up the timeline to start kicking people off of Medicaid by 6 months for no fucking reason other than to screw people. We've got, Senator Daines, who pulled the rug out from under every single Republican primary voter in this state by dropping out and throwing Almy in at the last second. Zinke doing almost the same thing. We have all of these Republicans doing awful things that are hurting people. They're making life more expensive. Donald Trump starts a war in Iran, and now people can't afford gas, which affects every single person in Montana. All of these things are happening at the same time. And your point, Matt, like Donald Trump's got like a 30% approval rating. This year should have been the year of like the biggest blue tsunami I've seen in my life. This year should have been, our Western congressional candidate winning by a landslide, a Senate candidate that doesn't have to spend $300 million to have a close race, flipping a bunch of legislative seats and, potentially taking one of the chambers back in the Montana legislature. All of these things were possible when we started this election cycle, but we have consistently shot ourselves in the foot with the infighting and the conspiracy theories. And if we don't figure out a way to stop that, we are going to not see any of those gains that we were hoping to see, or we're going to end up with a far smaller amount of them than expected. Like Sam Forstag should be in the position to run away with that Western congressional seat, and then I never have to hear Aaron Flint's name again, which would make me very happy. But
pretty happy.
yeah, like right now we're making it harder for him. So that is what we need to be working on as party leaders, as central committee chairs, as candidates running for other offices. That's where we need to start coming together. And we won't always agree on everything. I know that. I don't expect it. But we need to have the respect for each other as other human beings, like the four of us here, that give a shit about the state of Montana, that give a shit about democratic politics, and want to see better outcomes for people, our neighbors, our community members, our loved ones. That's what we need to be focusing on, not the he said, she said, they said, not the, oh, I heard this thingy, so now I'm going to go rant about it on social media and I'm going to stir up a bunch of shit. And then now I'm going to get all of my friends mad at these folks also. Like, if we can't find a way to have constructive, tough conversations and more of them, then change is coming. We have to decide whether we're going to be like in control of that change or if it's going to happen in spite of us. And I don't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
And I'd say keeping, again, our eye on that prize. I am absolutely guilty of getting drugged down into the mess and allowing myself to be, oh, look, a squirrel, ADHD, distracted over here with whatever interesting stuff is happening instead of keeping my eye on that prize, Jake, like you're talking about. That even under all this Republican administration, even Republicans, not a single one of their lives, unless they're a part of the 3% or higher, then none of their lives are better than they were 2 years ago. Every single human being in Montana, save a few hundred that are wealthy, are currently suffering under the complete control of Republicans at the state level, complete control at the federal level, and again, with majorities, thank goodness not a super majority, but majorities in the legislature.
Yeah, this is their world. I mean, right?
Yeah, it is. And again, you can ask people 2 years ago, your taxes weren't this high. 2 years ago, your gas wasn't this high. 2 years ago, your insurance, I can guarantee, was 60% less, which is mind-blowing. The fact that power over here, the PSC doesn't give a rat's ass about Montanans, and Montana Dakota Utilities, which is what we pay for here over in Eastern Montana, North Dakotans pay less for the same power because their regulatory agencies actually regulate. And again, all of these things that are building up under a Republican-controlled administration, we have to, again, keep our eye on the prize and talk about affordability and talk about why it is that Democrats need to get back into leadership to be able to, again, stop what's happening, stop the erosion, and to get some good policies back into place. Again, like those golden years that Montana experienced under a Democrat governor. Our Democrat leaders weren't perfect, but they did some great things for the state of Montana. They really did. And it's been really hard with my kids, raising them in a state that is currently really difficult to live in. And I think they feel it. And I think a lot of citizens are feeling it, and they need answers. And we need to be able to provide those answers. And if we're not doing it constructively, like you guys all said, we are failing if we don't do it.
It goes back to local stuff too. We need Democrats in office at every single level, because I need to know that I'm going to have clean water. I need to know that when I flush my toilet, it's going to go somewhere that isn't all over my house. I need to know that, the food I'm eating at a restaurant is safe and healthy for me to eat. Every single thing that, when I was a kid, I considered myself not political. I didn't care about politics. I wasn't involved at all. I couldn't have told you anything about politics until 2017, but every part of our life is political. So we need to make sure we've got folks at every level who are going to accomplish what we need to make life more affordable, to make life better, to preserve a future that we all can enjoy, our kids can enjoy, and people for generations to come.
And Absolutely. I'd say get involved locally. We need people in every single community I've ever visited, whether it's for work or business or pleasure. there are needs on zoning boards. There are needs on school boards. There are needs on all of these different, sometimes just volunteer boards within your city, within your county, within your municipality, that there are places where Democrat leadership is desperately needed, and we can get people to fill those gaps. And it is not, you don't need to be brilliant. You don't need to be special. We need ordinary Montanans who give a shit to be able to go in and to help out on those boards and to, again, help rebuild some of this infrastructure to, again, bring those communities together. And so like when people ask me, like, what can I do? Sure. Getting involved with your local central committee is great and everything like that. But my candidate currently in House District 36, he's running a really difficult race. He is Mr. City Council. And every time he's not working, he shows up at city council meetings. He is terribly civically involved, not just to get to know those people who are running his city, but to understand how it works and how he, as a community leader and a partner, can go ahead and assist. And it's been enlightening hearing him talk about, again, our local politics and our local city. And Jake, I know up in Helena there, how many different city or county commission meetings do you attend a week? It is okay.
All the time.
Okay.
And like, as someone running for county office, I'm running for Lewis and Clark County Commissioner this year. Like, I started going to a lot of community events when I even had the inkling of running. But it was going to those events, going to those meetings, going to commission meetings and hometown Helenas and what the Helenas and other social gatherings that made me realize why it is so important that we connect with folks. And that was what helped give me the push I needed to say that, yes, I'm going to do this, is because I got to meet dozens of other people in the Helena area or East Helena that care enough about their community to be involved. Now it's my turn to step up and continue, as Alani was saying, to like stand on their shoulders and continue that fight and that push for a better Helena, a better Lewis and Clark County, and a better Montana.
And I'd say, again, that local level, you are way more impactful at the local level. I realize national politics is sexier, statewide politics are fancier. Like, I get that. But the actual impact, again, you got to drill that down to your local level. 2 different races in Miles City were decided by 40 votes or less. Mm-hmm. That's for most of us, that's our immediate friend circle right there. Yep. That's 40 votes. And again, it's really important that you engage locally. And so, like, I would say if we say anything around here, first of all, I'd rather have $5 from 100 people for the Montana Democratic Party. And my goodness, please get involved locally at your local level with your local races. Support those deeply local candidates for school boards, for your legislative races. I mean, they really are your hometown heroes. And again, getting those individuals and having those conversations are so wonderful and valuable. And man, if you want to be grounded, go sit down at your local cafe versus, being chronically online, like probably everybody in this conversation. Go down to, your local cafe with the cracked tile floor, and don't look at the ceiling. It hasn't been cleaned in a generation. But you're going to guarantee to hear what is really, really happening in your community. And I think that's really important. So that's
I say thank you guys. I mean, it is so obvious. Like, I didn't know who I was going to be talking to today, before I got on. It's just so overtly obvious that you guys have dedicated so much of yourself for fighting for Montanans, for the little guy. I mean, to me, the Democratic Party is the party for the little guy. And I got a lot more to say about that, but I know Sam's going to cut me off.
Well, hey, yeah, I think that is a pretty good spot for us to end tonight. I want to thank our guests, Jacob Miles and Hannah Nash, so much for being here with us tonight, talking about unity within the party and all of these other incredibly important issues. I want to thank Lonnie, who stopped by and chatted with us a little bit earlier, as well as a surprise guest. And of course, my co-host on this, Matthew Leavenworth. We will be back doing this every Thursday at 7 p.m., talking about a variety of issues, candidate panels, and things that are going on with legislation, both here in Montana and nationally across the board. So thank you all so